I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging. Today, we're recording this podcast at the Nang Nagu Library near Queen Victoria Market. Dear listeners, you are now listening to the Voices of Us podcast, produced by the not-for-profit organization R.3. This is the space where we share authentic stories from queer, LGBTQIA+, or as we often say, rainbow, international students, alumni, and allies. Through these stories, we hope to bring you connection, courage, and a deeper understanding of the diverse journeys within our communities. You can find all podcast episodes on our website, r.3.org. Everyone's journey is different. We're trying to bring you different perspectives, and we believe everyone can take away something from those stories. Together, we can build a world with respect, love, and understanding for all. This is Voices of Us, episode 11. I'm your host, Feifei Liao. My pronouns are she and her. Here with us today is Jaanu. Can you say hi to our audiences?
Hello, everybody.
And we also have a special guest today, who is Chiran. Can you say hi to our audiences as well?
Hi, I'm Tiran. I'm Jana's friend.
Thank you for joining us today, both of you, Jaanu and Chiran. And before we begin, a gentle trigger warning. This episode includes discussions about sexual violence. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or distressed, please pause and take the time and space you need. You can also find some support services in our show notes, and we will also talk about service access. Hello and welcome. Thank you for both of you joining us today. It's such a pleasure speaking with you on the podcast. So much has happened since the first time we met a couple of years ago, Jaanu. Would you like to introduce yourself with our audiences for them to get to know you a little bit?
Absolutely. My name is Jaanu Kalyani. I am a Telugu person from Hyderabad. It's in South India and not so small town, but I moved here almost 10 years ago now to study at university.
Thank you, Jaanu. Really love the reconnection and also see your journey till now. So I would like to also ask a bit about how has the journey been like for you in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I feel like it was a very unexpected turn of events. When I came here, I was only 16, going on 17. And at the time, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do with myself and what life had even had in stock for me. I moved here with a few of my family members as well. So the move itself felt quite big, I think, in the time.
So you moved here with your family when you were 16.
Yeah, I moved here with my family. At the time, we were actually experiencing a bit of crisis back in Hyderabad, so we were all trying to move away from there to find a sense of safety and build a new life somewhere else. And before coming to Australia, I lived in America for about a year.
How was it like that, coming here with your family as a 16 years old, teenager and, going through uni? Because I also came here when I was 16 years old. Yeah, yeah. But I came here by myself. So I couldn't imagine how the life was like living with the families because my families are far away from here. One time you feel like you have the whole world's freedom and you can just do whatever you want without them watching you. At the same time, you also feel, oh, they are your parents. You really need some kind of a connection with them as well. So it's quite different. So I'm curious, how was your experience like living with your families?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, especially coming here after America and trying to settle there, it was very much of a change. And I think quite a bit of the time that I spent with my family and settling in here still felt quite limited, and I wasn't really able to engage with a lot of the students or the community here. And at the time, I was still trying to grasp what my gender and sexuality was to myself. And as a 16-year-old in university, I'm sure you can relate, Feifei, you're kind of feel really lost and like kind of behind as well. You see so many more people just a few years older than you that have figured out quirks of their personality. Um, yeah, I think the beginning was exciting, but still a little spooky.
Mm. So when did you actually start to explore your gender and sexuality? And to be very honest, a
Mm.
secret for everyone. I started to explore when I was 25 years old.
Wow.
I didn't even think that's a thing important in my life at all. So when was that for you?
No, I think I was in a similar boat with feeling like it wasn't a priority at the time. I, in terms of my family, I grew up with family violence and a bit of abuse, so I always had a sense of almost feeling a bit disconnected from my own identity. When things started to crack and like my queerness really came to the forefront was closer towards the end of my uni. Um, and I had a really specific experience with sexual assault, and I think it really challenged me in terms of how I saw myself and how I was being perceived in the world. And I think, ironically, it was the first time I felt like I could stand up for myself and kind of had had an opportunity to protect myself. And in that exploring of finding safety, I feel like I really asked myself why that specific moment really moved me so much when I was experiencing so much of the similar forms of abuse at home. Mm.
Mm.
And I think at the time as well, I was finding a lot of safety in some of my queer friends and feel like it's a classic situation of everyone else sees it before you. So I had a lot of people who were really sweet, gently, I think, suggesting that I could explore my gender identity and even like exploring different names for myself. And at that point, I knew that I really needed to listen to that voice that was asking for change and to be heard and recognized. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having the courage to share your experience with us. And sometimes it can be quite difficult to talk about it.
Mm.
And you mentioned about you had some queer friends who supported you. And did you meet them at uni or did you meet with them outside of uni?
It was outside of uni actually. I was going to a youth space. I I think it was somewhere in Fitzroy, so really the gay capital down here. But I was doing some art classes that I thought I could make friends at, and usually where there's art, there's a bunch of queers. And I was blessed enough to find some really lovely people, yeah, who recognized my identity and wanted to make space for me. Mm.
That's so important to have friends that's supportive.
Mm.
And also, you mentioned the incident happened after you graduated from uni, right?
Oh, not
Or
quite actually. It was in my final year that it had happened. I was working at a bar at the time, and um, yeah, I feel like hospitality jobs are always have a sense of risk with this sort of thing. But yeah, experienced something while I was working, and this was, yeah, towards the end of the time of my uni as well. But it was such a major event that I couldn't actually finish my university any longer. The events that led after, I started to really almost crumble in a sense of being faced with the reality of such intensity. Um, and at the time, I was still living with my family, and I knew that I couldn't live as myself around them, and I really needed to detach from that toxic unit. And my friends that I found, I was sharing the story of experiencing this all and how it's really fundamentally changed how I've been moving through the world. And they immediately knew that I needed a change as well. So I literally think the next day they came over with their car and just started packing my things and helped me move. And they took me to their place. And coincidentally, they had a room, so it all worked out really lovely. But um, yeah, I feel like it was quite a whirlwind of events that followed that one significant point.
How did your family respond to you to the fact that you were moving out? Did they ask you what happened that you are moving out?
Mm. Yeah, they all had their doubts. I feel like they were slowly starting to realize that about my queerness as well. And they were seeing me have like women's clothes in my closet and just noticing that I had makeup sometimes. I was also dyeing my hair a lot, which kind of gives it away a little bit too. But I feel like their strong sense of denial and conservativeness, being like Indian family, they they were honestly just didn't want to acknowledge it. So when I told them that I'm moving out, I almost had to fabricate this lie that's more easier from them. I was like, hey, I'm actually having a really hard time with uni, and I think moving out with my friends and studying with them while living with them will be better for my education. And they immediately took that up because for them it was more of an accessible reality than their child being trans. Uh, it was quite a difficult move.
And how did your parents' response made you feel?
Mm,
How did their response of, oh, you are moving out, they believed in your fabricated story? How did that make you feel?
mm. I I think it kind of made me really realize the fact that in that dynamic, I wasn't really their child. I wasn't really connected to them in an emotional, meaningful way, but almost as a projection of themselves.
Was that easy? I know that if you were under 18 years old, you need a guardian
Mm,
to go with you. So
mm.
when you left your home, um, you were you were over 18 years old, so you
Yeah.
could.
At that time, I was, I think, 20, 19, going on 20. And it was past the minor stage of being here without a guardian, so I was able to get through it a bit better. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, so what kind of services that you access at uni back then? Because
Mm.
you also mentioned you actually went through being under 18 and then over 18,
Mm.
and obviously the awareness of different support and services were different. And of course, because of the um, yeah, because of the the even the knowledge and awareness about yourself, it
Mm.
has been growing, expanding differently. So
Mm.
like at your different lifetime, how did you navigate your uni life while you were trying to figure out what you want to do, as
Mm.
your career, and also at the same time still exploring, gender, sexuality.
Mm. Um, that's such a good question. I feel like I almost went at uni as a form of distraction from having a real sense of connection to what I was doing. I feel like when I was at uni, all I did was study, and to avoid going home, I'd stay at the library till 9 or 10 p.m. and continue studying. Um, and I think as many like international students that come here, I feel like you try to do all the right things. You go to like student societies, you volunteer here and there, and you try to do internships. But I feel like so many of these spaces are also quite limiting when it comes to building ongoing relationships. Um, yeah, so I think I had quite a strong sense of loneliness while uh, starting my education here. And it wasn't until the end of my, or towards the end of my time at uni that I was finally able to branch out and connect with things outside. And few of the services that were actually really special and helped me connect with queer people were Drummond Street Youth Services.
Mm.
They're based out of Colchin, but do events all over the city. And it was the first time I had people that are also older than me, as the youth workers and the social workers who had lived experience with queerness, that I could see having a life, and I could recognize that as a form of option for having or living in a reality that I could experience in the future for myself. I think growing up in Hyderabad, queerness wasn't really an option. I feel like it almost didn't exist for us. It was almost a Western idea. You're not really gay unless you're like a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. I remember being told to be scared of trans people, that they're so different to just being a regular person, that they're closer to being monsters than people. And I think that really impacted me so deeply that when I did experience ideas that are about my identity that didn't match being a cisgendered man, it was really difficult. I felt a lot of shame and guilt, and it led me to be incredibly like suicidal and self isolate. That sense of shame really meant that I was isolating myself from making any new connection at the fear of being seen as who I really was, just a trans person. Growing up, I was a really like effeminate child. I'd always ask to get my nails done whenever my mom was at the salon. I would always be giggly and cheery and try my grandma's makeup. And it was quite young when all of this was kind of denied and shunned away. And I still process to this day how things that happened in my childhood have such a pull on me, even in my day to day life and how I move through the world.
And also, you mentioned about, you didn't really receive much support from the uni, that
Mm.
didn't really support your exploration, right? But Drum Street, which is outside of uni, that really supported your journey to enable you to find that happiness. So, how did you find Drum Street services?
Mm. Yeah, German Street was really like such an incredibly sweet space for me. I think I found them through Instagram at the time. I feel like sometimes the queer community can be a bit hard to follow what's going on in the day to day with events or spaces, but once you know someone, you kind of get an invitation into the world of it all. So when I did meet my friends who I moved in with, they had a few connections in the art space, and yeah, that's when I found out about Invisible, which is a program that Drummond Street Youth Services ran, which kind of just invited young people to come through, anywhere from 15 to 25, I think, and also inclusive to international students and anyone with any visa background, to do just fun activities around the city. We once went to like an amusement park, and another time it was a food festival. I think the aim of the program was just to let people with lived experience of queerness enjoy life and have the freedom to be visible in public but also be protected.
Mm. So, what's missing from uni?
Just that. I feel like the embrace of what Drummond Street programming was doing at the time was really just recognition and creating spaces. And I feel like while, there was a queer room in Deakin University where I went to, it was a tiny little closet space that was next to the security guard like room, where in an already confusing campus layout, you kind of just left to go on a treasure hunt for.
Treasure hunt.
Literally. And once you reach there as well, I remember the first time I was there, no one was really inside, and the space felt so empty and had no warmth to it. And I feel like already as an international student on campuses, you feel like an outsider and almost as if you're not invited there. And that was really the case for that space as well. I couldn't really see myself in the little posters that were up of mostly just white people. I didn't really see myself in that space, and it led me not to really connect or try any harder as well. It was really hard to connect. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's hard to also create that kind of a sense of a connection as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But after you graduated, were you holding graduate working visa? because you also mentioned about you became a asylum seeker. So
Mm,
how did that happen?
yeah, towards the end of my uni, the impact of the sexual violence was quite intense, and this led me to actually drop out. At the same time, my queerness was getting very abundantly queer to my family members too. And when I had left to live by myself, they had stopped funding me to quite a large extent. So even though I was 19, 20, and had legal work rights at the time for the 20 hours that you can do as a student here, it wasn't enough to sustain a life. I really had to kind of figure out what to do in that stage because my dropping out of uni meant that I didn't have a valid visa any longer and I couldn't stay here legally. And since I was still in the early stages of connecting with my gender and with my sexuality, the idea of going back to India was the scariest thing ever. It meant that there were more people like my family who are likely not going to accept me for who I was. And at the time, I found out you can find asylum here as someone who's queer, coming from a country that is conservative and oppressive towards queer people. It was a really risky, like, shot in the dark. I didn't know if it would have worked out. I didn't know if this would have impacted my future visa status or how long I would be in this kind of limbo of being an asylum seeker as well. But the most important thing for me at the time was just having a space that I could process so much that was happening. And while my visa was still valid, I applied for asylum, and that gave me time to process and try to imagine a new life for myself, especially one that's disconnected from my family and, yeah, a reality where I could see myself being happy.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'm thinking, for anyone who is listening to the podcast as well,
Mm,
I've also met people who used to be international students and
mm,
then become asylum seekers because of their gender, sexuality. So for anyone who might be in the journey at the moment finds really challenging,
mm,
anything that supported you or motivated you to keep pushing, keep fighting, or keep, trying to figure out a way. So what are
mm,
the ways that really helped you?
mm. That's such a good question. I feel like what was the most meaningful for me during that time was my friends almost allowing me to have some time here and making me feel like it wasn't selfish of me to have that time away from my family, to have that time away from my own hometown. And the more I spoke to support services here as well, there was a really strong sense of just comfort that I could feel and belief that I deserve better. And I think that was something that I really needed to be a constant reminder because going through like no contact with your family is quite of an intense experience. And I feel like a lot of people, it deters them from, yeah, having like that sense of agency for themselves too. But it was also one of the best years of my life. It was possibly the worst time ever, but I have so many pictures in my phone from that year. The years before that, I wouldn't take any photos of myself. It was only photos of my worksheets for uni, biological drawings, and so many cue cards. And yeah, I really am proud of myself for taking that step for myself. But I don't think I would have been here without the people around me who made me really believe that I could have better.
What is your favorite photo?
Oh, that's so cute. I think
Looking through
my
the phone.
favorite photo is I just started taking estrogen for the first time and started my hormone replacement therapy. So that's gender affirming care for people who are transitioning. And that day, I made it a day for myself. I went on a big walk and saw my doctor. And once I got back home, I did my whole face of makeup. I wanted to be really glamorous. And it was 2 a.m. at night, and I finally finished doing my makeup. And I was ready to put the sticker on. So it's a little patch that kind of sits on your skin. I remember taking a photo And as soon as I was done, I heard a few voices outside, and my friends were there too. And they're like, Jenny, have you done it? And I don't know, I think that was a really big moment for me to just me building my own world almost. And knowing that there was someone outside also who was excited for my own growth. Yeah.
So cute. I'd love to see the photos as well. Oh my god, 2 a.m.
2 a.m. and we
with
had
your sleepy
three
eyes.
dogs. Literally.
Yeah. I'm also wondering, what could the services have done differently to make the journey a bit easier or even at a, preventative aspect as well. So one part is that university could have done something differently to make the journey easier for you to get the support as international student. There might be something the queer events organizers might have done differently to make you feel welcomed, right? There might be also another aspect as an international student. For people who are living with their families, there's also a bit of the connection and support to understand the family relationships. There are also a lot of international students, they do not have their families here. I think for them it's a bit different as well. So any kind of a perspective to even to help with that family relationship, because you also shared you wish you could have moved out earlier actually. So at some point of the time, we do not want another violence incident to happen, so that to make the decision from what preventative perspective to even realize, it's actually better to separate. But then what the support could be possible if people they do not have friends who they can move to live with, that might be challenging. And also living without your family also means you also need to work on your finance, that you also need to work on how are you going to pay the rent as well, right? And also there's also visa situation, who might be possible to support you in that even visa process, because you are googling searching what could be possible there. And also any perspectives connecting the services outside of uni, what the services even outside of uni could have done differently, so that international students who are at uni can also access the support services better. I know it's a lot different aspect, but you can feel free to pick anyone to share.
Absolutely. In terms of the first half of what could have been different and what universities and service providers could do better, I feel like as international students or as queer international students, we're an incredibly overlooked population, even though there's so many of us here. I think the lived experiences of our realities aren't really recognized to be so severe. I think what I would really wish for university to have done differently is honestly just acknowledging that, hey, if you are here, if you're an international student and also a queer person, you're gonna experience it a bit of difficulty. And I really wish people, especially at universities, could stop the idea of Australia being the safest space ever to be the person who you want to be. I think there's a real misconception, especially when it's perpetuated by white people down here, where this idea that it's a really queer forward society here. And I actually don't agree with that. I think, especially when you're a person of color and already have that prejudice against you, queerness further isolates you, not only from the people here, but the people that are from your own background that also live here. And I feel like in the second half with the family and stuff, I feel like personally, since I am a person from back home, from South India, I feel like there was a lot of preconceived notions of what Indian family structures could look like. And I was going through Headspace, the counseling service at the university, and a few more services that I got to engage with who heard my story. And I wish they recognized the level of physical, emotional, and sexual violence that I'd experienced to be what it was. I often got told, "Oh, you're from India. That must have been the normal. That's cultural, right? You have disciplinary, like physical abuse. That is kind of just a part of how you guys do your thing there." And so I experienced a lot of dismissive ideas, and which led me to internalize it as well. I think being here and hearing so many things about how it's normal to experience abuse as an Indian person almost made me feel like I should just be okay with it while being at home and experiencing all that. And I just wish that the support providers had a sense of what intersectionality can look like and what different forms of abuse can look like, and having specific pathways for people like that to actually escape that forms of violence. Because a lot of the family violence support services here is also don't cater to people who don't have a permanent residency here. It's very dependent on the finances and the structures here to provide you that care, and everyone who's outside of that kind of fall through the cracks. And that was quite a strong reality for me. When I left home, I couldn't just get on Centrelink. And Centrelink's a social welfare program here that pays people to meet basic needs in like on a weekly or fortnightly basis. And a lot of the support structure expect you to already have that while getting the care, whereas I didn't. And the only real points where I could get financial aid or even just material aid were center or smaller services that are severely underfunded. I remember most of the time I would be going back home with a bag full of food, but all of it would be expired. And I would reach home and I would try to open it and eat it and just be having expired food that was not edible. And it really painted a picture of me that they didn't care enough, really. And I I really respect the work that Asylum Seeker Resource Center does, but when I went in to get a lot of the care there, it was still quite isolating. I felt like I didn't get recognized as a queer person was going through all this. The reality of being in so-called Australia meant that there was a preconceived notion of what a refugee can look like as well. And for most people, that meant that they were families, usually with parents who were older and a young child who was escaping immediate danger in a country that's not livable for them any longer, and they're escaping danger. My situation was slightly different. I was a young person who came here to study and couldn't go back home just yet because of the severity of my mental health and also my gender exploration at the time. And I really felt like I wasn't invited into those spaces, as if I wasn't good enough to be there, or as if I wasn't going through enough pain. And that was really hard. I would usually just get some food and then run away to back home so I wouldn't have to experience the stares and the judgment of almost choosing to live like this. I feel like that was a lot of the projection that was thrown onto me, like, oh, you could speak English, you have an able body, you came here on your own like accord. Why are you doing this to yourself and becoming a refugee? I wish people would just understand that people have different realities. For me, it meant that I'm escaping from possible violence in India, but also trying to build a life here after having family violence already here. So it wasn't really a rainbows and sunshine experience of coming out and being happy. Yeah, so yeah, just really wish that support services had more awareness of different like, experiences and made space for intersectionality.
Thank you. I think it's really important to recognize violence is everywhere. It's not just a certain culture. I think you mentioned about people think, oh, it's just normal. It's not normal, and we shouldn't normalize violence and even normalize violence as a certain normal behavior and attitude, and you just have to take it. Well, and also statistically speaking, around the world, 1 in 3 women would experience gender-based violence. And this is not just because you come from certain country, just because you come from certain culture. It's globally. And also for queer international students, especially for trans communities, and there are multiple layers of challenges in that. And also it's not just a simple way of saying, your visa situation as an international student, what kind of support you can get if you were a refugee, and what kind of support you can get. So the services is pretty much dependent on your visa status as well, which you could have been done differently and improved, right? And I also want to ask Kieran, because you were Jaanu's housemate, and Jaanu did also receive a lot of support from housemates. So I would like to just ask you about how was your experience like living with Jaanu. What are your thoughts on, support and anything that in your mind you think that you wanted to explore more?
Yeah, I'm not just Janu's housemate friend. We also work together, and because I also work also work in the community service sector, and I've seen a lot of people struggling to secure services, resources, any kinds of support just because of their gender transition, because their sexual orientation. And for uni sectors, it's really easy for them to ignore that part. Like they have food relief services, but they would always prioritize the basic needs. They think it's more important than your sexual needs or your personal identity exploration. And I think that's kind of I don't know how to find a better word, blind for the educational institutions support students who are living alone in a foreign country. And it's even for local services, like we like where we work, it's a local council, and as I as I'm familiar with, we always work with majority the health institutions, the service providers, and they don't really provide service to the queer international students. They always prioritize people who are like born and raised in locally, or who has PR, or yeah, like it really depends on, like you both said, your visa status, and which is making it harder if for students who don't have all those identities, who don't have a valid visa to get access all those services.
Yeah, thank you, John and Kieran, for sharing. And you mentioned about the legal services. What's the name of the legal services?
Yeah, they're called Women's Legal.
Oh, it's just a women's legal.
Women's Legal.
Yeah, and
Very
do they
straightforward.
provide the services or basically in Victoria or certain region?
Yeah, it was based in Victoria, and they provide free legal support for women who are experiencing either family violence or domestic violence or any form of care for like marginalized people. Mine specifically was visa, so I got to see a migrant lawyer, and who had a really rich history of doing refugee status stuff as well. So, yeah, I really lucked out.
And how did you find that service?
It was really helpful. I'm so grateful for staff. Shout out staff, who helped me out, and I think it was the first time I felt recognized for the reality I was experiencing.
That's really important to find people that can understand and also validate your feelings, right? Yes. Thank you, Jaanu and Kiran, for sharing. And from what Jaanu's point of view is really important to have somewhere that's ongoing that people can come and they can feel the connection and then they can feel safe and included. And also from Kiran's point of view, I think it's also quite similar as well. I think another point is this need to be resourced to do as well, not just expecting people from communities to run it without any resources. And thank you, Jaanu and Kiran, for joining our episode 11. And let's create more spaces, ongoing, and also properly resourced to support queer international students, and especially for trans and gender diverse people to feel safe. And we shouldn't take safety as for granted as well. It is the space that we need to create together to make it safe. We listed some resources in our show notes, and that also includes some of the services that Jaanu mentioned about as well. So please feel free to check them out. Reach out, we're always here for you as well. You've been listening to The Voices of Us, a podcast by R.3, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to building a meaningfully connected community for queer international students, alumni, and allies. What's next? We'll continue to discuss more topics about queer international students' mental health, particularly for our non-binary, trans, and gender diverse people's experiences. Follow R.3 on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and check out upcoming community activities at r.3.org. This episode was supported by the Victorian Government with a special thanks to City of Melbourne Libraries and Vivid Curiosity. Thanks for being with us today. What's your story? Want to be our next speaker? Express your interest via the Get Involved page on our website, or simply just send us a message on social media. Love you all!
Love you.
Love you too.